Is now the right time to buy in Connecticut? With everything going on with the market and the Fed finally cutting rates, should you take the plunge? Hi, I'm Stacy Olson with Lamacchia Realty. And on my channel, I like to talk about all things real estate and living in Connecticut. If you've been wondering if now is a good time to buy a home in Connecticut, you need to watch this. In the next few minutes, we'll go over recent housing market trends, mortgage rates, supply and demand, and some reasons why acting now could make sense, depending on your situation. So let's dive in. So first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, mortgage rates. It's finally happening. We're starting to see the slight downtick in the mortgage rates. It has been declining ever so slightly over the last month or two. And as of September 2025, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate right now is hovering between 6.2 and 6.3%. Just so you remember, it was firmly around 7% earlier this year. And lower mortgage rates are always an incentive to buy housing. On the economic front, inflation has been moderating somewhat, though we're still not quite where the Fed wants us to be. But there is growing expectations that the Fed will ease rates again in the near future. Some are even predicting we'll get 2 to 3 more rate cuts just this year. And these drops in interest rate matter. For every 0.25%, you can reduce your monthly payment meaningfully. Now, I know when the Fed drops the rate, the mortgage rates don't always follow suit, but typically they follow the same patterns. So now let's zoom into the Connecticut housing market. Home price growth has been a key player in our housing market in the last few years. Home prices in Connecticut are up 6 to 7% year over year in many markets in our state. The median home price right now is between $425 and $450. And some of you might think that's not so bad, but in places like Fairfield County, especially, median home prices are significantly higher. They're more in the $700,000 range. And believe me, these crazy home prices are starting to bleed into other areas. I'm seeing it a lot in New Haven County specifically. And as we all know, Connecticut suffers from low inventory. I've talked about this in one of my prior videos. There is a serious shortage of homes for sale. In fact, Connecticut has one of the largest deficits of active home listings compared to the pre-pandemic levels, which means there are far fewer homes on the market relative to the demand. And here, many homes are still selling above list price. Over 60% of homes in Connecticut were sold above asking in June of 2025. Most homes were selling in the 103 to 104% of list price. And although inventory is tight, one bright spot for buyers is that the days on market have crept up in some places, meaning buyers have a little bit more breathing room. But prices are still rising here. Supply is low, and many homes are still selling quickly, and as I said, above asking price, which overall tends to favor sellers. But don't worry, it can also set the stage for certain buyer strategies as well. Given all these trends, what are some strategies to think about as to why someone might want to be buying in Connecticut right now? Number 1, lock in a mortgage rate before it potentially really drops. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out on this. If you wait around and then there is a big drop, what happens? You risk higher prices offsetting the lower rates. Because what happens is more people will flood the market looking for homes. And with such low inventory, the demand will be frenzied again. And when your demand outpaces your supply, as we witnessed over the last few years, that means prices will go up. So by locking in now, you really avoid the future price inflation. Number 2, moving costs might be rising. Construction costs and materials have all been going up due to tariffs. And on top of that, because housing supply is constrained, builders have way less incentive to lower prices. So homes you buy now may appreciate simply because of cost pressures in building and labor. Number 3, Affordability versus renting. If you've been renting, rent growth in Connecticut has been steep. And as we've talked about, vacancies are tightening, which pushes the rent up. And for many, a monthly mortgage payment might not be that much higher than what you're paying in rent. And as we all know, owning builds equity. For those who have finances that are stable, buying could beat out rising rent over a 5 to 10 year horizon. Number 4, less competition now means better negotiating power. As the housing market slows a bit in certain high-end markets in Connecticut and rates are staying moderately high, there's more willingness among some sellers to negotiate. That can manifest in price drops, concessions like closing cost help or getting repairs done on the house, or flexible timelines. I've noticed in the last few months with some of my buyers that they've actually been able to negotiate a little more with sellers than they did a year ago. And number 5, top locations are getting more attractive. Areas near transit or towns that appeal to remote workers wanting, let's say, suburban amenities and access to big cities, think New York City, they're all still seeing high demand. Investing in these types of locations can mean future upside and perhaps resale value. And lastly, number 6, historically low vacancy in Connecticut equates to less likelihood of price drops. I had a video on this topic not too long ago. Connecticut has some of the lowest housing vacancy rates in our country, meaning supply is very tight. So that condition often supports home values rather than letting them collapse during a downturn. So let me give you a quick scenario. If you find a solid house in a good commuter town close to public transport and you lock in a 30-year fixed mortgage at, let's say, 6.2%, your monthly payment could be reasonable. If instead you wait, then even if the rates drop by, let's say, 0.5%, the price of that same house might shoot up 5 to 10%, meaning your monthly payment or total cost ends up being higher than if you had bought today with the higher rate. Of course, buying now isn't perfect for everyone. There are some risks and considerations that you have to keep in mind. Interest rate volatility is one of them. If rates spike or don't come down, carrying costs could be steeper for some folks. So you lock in the higher rate now and then it either continues to go up or just stays flat. And if you were stretching yourself to begin with, that can be a hard pill to swallow. Affordability is another consideration. Even with current rates, with down payments, property taxes, maintenance, and insurance, these all matter. And in Connecticut, very high property taxes are the name of the game. So you always have to think, can I really afford this when you think about everything bundled together? Another risk is market cooling. Some luxury or high-end markets may show softening first. And if you overpay, you may have less upside short term, which means you're stuck in that house longer than you intended. And another thing to think about is transaction costs and closing costs. Don't overlook these. With inspections, moving costs, closing fees, these all go into the process and can add to upwards of $15,000 to $25,000 depending on where you're purchasing in Connecticut. But don't be scared. Many of these risks can be mitigated, like shopping around for mortgage rates. Consider some Connecticut homebuyer programs, either first-time buyer or some local incentives they might have. Lock in fixed rates or explore like a hybrid ARM, which would be like a fixed initial term. If you plan to move in the next 5 to 7 years, you may never see that adjustable part hit you. Or buy in growth areas with expected infrastructure or transit investments going on, because those will always be in demand. So is now the time to buy in Connecticut? For many people, yes. Rising home prices, tight inventory, modest easing of rates, and growing rent costs all make buying more attractive. But it's not a one-size-fits-all choice. Weigh your situation, your budget, and what matters. Location, your long-term plan, and your risk tolerance. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real estate and home buying updates from me. Also, comment below. What town are you considering buying in Connecticut? Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great day.